A boy of 10 stands in the dark before a mountain that breathes. Her name is Vhagar, the last living dragon to have flown over the conquest, older than the kingdoms, vast as a hill. Her rider is freshly dead, and no one has told this small, furious prince that he cannot climb her. So he does. By the time they drag him down, the largest creature in the world answers to the smallest, angriest boy in it. There is a brawl, wooden swords, and one word thrown like a knife: strong. The one word in the realm that is treason to speak. Then a blade flashes, and the boy who claimed a dragon loses an eye to it. Blood on the sand at Driftmark, a grudge that will outlive them both. But to understand how one child's eye could help burn a kingdom, we must go back to an old king, and a question no one could answer without spilling blood. Welcome to Westeros Within, where the fires of history still burn. This is House of the Dragon, the True History. Episode 1. A Question of Succession. This is how the Dance of the Dragons began, not with fire, but with a father's love, and a throne that could not be shared. It begins, as ruin so often does, with an old man trying to do right. Viserys I, the old king. 55 years upon the Iron Throne, the longest, gentlest reign the Dragon Kings would ever know. But both his sons died before him, and at the end, he had no heir. So he faced the question that would haunt his blood for a generation. When the line breaks, who comes next? In the year 101 after the conquest, he summoned 1,000 lords to Harrenhal, the greatest gathering Westeros had ever seen. For 13 days they argued. It came down to two: Princess Rhaenys, daughter of the dead eldest son, the senior line, and Prince Viserys, son of the second son, who had ridden the dragon of the conqueror himself. A woman's line against a man's. The lords chose Viserys by a margin of near 20 to 1, and Rhaenys, passed over twice, earned the name the singers would hang on her forever: the Queen Who Never Was. Mark this well, for everything turns upon it. The lords of the Seven Kingdoms had just ruled with one voice. The Iron Throne does not pass to a woman, while a man yet stands to claim it. That law made Viserys a king, and one day Viserys would break it. He was crowned in 103. King Viserys, the first of his name, the most amiable man ever to sit that cruel chair. He wanted, above all things, to be loved. His was the golden afternoon of House Targaryen. Feasts, tourneys, a treasury overflowing. He grew soft and content, and hated conflict the way other men hate the cold. That gentleness was the soil in which the whole tragedy would grow. And there is a darker poetry in it. The throne he loved was eating him alive. Its 1,000 blades cut him. The cuts festered, and by the end, a creeping rot had eaten into his face, and he wore a golden mask over the ruin. The gentlest king the dynasty ever made, devoured by the seat he would not leave, while his family devoured itself behind his back. His queen was Aemma of House Arryn. And here, the gods were cruel. Child after child, stillborn or dead in the cradle. Only one survived, a daughter, Rhaenyra. Viserys adored her past all reason. He called her the realm's delight, gave her the yellow dragon Syrax, and sat her at his council. She grew up never once doubting she was born to rule. And then came the year 105, and two wounds that would never close. Queen Aemma went to her birthing bed and gave Viserys the son he had prayed for, and died of it. The boy lived a single day. In the space of 2 dawns, the king lost his wife and his only son both. His brother chose that grief to make a jest. In a brothel, men say, Daemon lifted a cup to the dead infant and named him the heir for a day. When that reached the king, something turned cold against his brother and warm toward his daughter. He would not name the man who mocked his dead son. He would name the child of his heart. Before the realm, he proclaimed Rhaenyra, Princess of Dragonstone, his heir, and summoned hundreds of lords to swear before gods and men to defend her right. Even his brother Daemon, even his own hand, Otto Hightower. Viserys believed an oath, once sworn, would hold. He was wrong, for he made his daughter heir, and then changed nothing, ever. He let two factions each believe they would win. His refusal to face the quarrel was the quarrel. Let us speak of the brother, because no man bends this story more than Daemon Targaryen. He was everything Viserys was not. Lean where the king was soft, hungry where the king was content. The finest swordsman of his house, bearing the Valyrian blade, dark sister, astride the lean, blood-red dragon Caraxes, the blood worm, the most charming man in the realm, and the most dangerous. He warred upon the pirate kings of the Stepstones, cut down the dread admiral they called the Crab Feeder, and set a crown upon his own brow. Then, bored of it, abandoned the kingdom he had bled for, and came home, a king without a crown, a blade without a war, his every ambition circling the one throne he could not have, his brother's. And there were whispers, always whispers, that the prince looked upon his own niece with an eye no uncle should. The chronicles never agreed on it. They rarely agree, you will find, on anything that matters. Barely half a year after he buried Emma, the king took a new wife. Lady Alicent of House Hightower, clever, well-read, the daughter of the king's own hand. Alicent was not of the dragon's blood, no silver hair, an ordinary great lady of Old Town, but she gave the king what Rhaenyra's mother never could. Sons, Aegon, the eldest, who would ride the golden sunfire, dreaming Helaena, who rode Dreamfire, Aemond, born dragonless and bitter, and Daeron, sent to Old Town, true-born sons of the king, standing, everyone, behind a half-sister already promised the throne. And so the realm began to whisper a new question. Why should a daughter inherit when there were sons? The court took sides, and the split was made flesh one evening at a feast. Queen Alicent came down the hall gowned all in green. Princess Rhaenyra wore the black and red of the dragon. From that night, men spoke of two parties at court, the Greens and the Blacks. Two women who had once been close as sisters, and the histories cannot agree on when that love curdled into hate. Now we come to the wound that armed them all. To bind the great Valyrian fleet to her cause, Rhaenyra was wed to Sir Laenor Velaryon, of the pure Valyrian blood. It was a cold marriage. Laenor preferred the company of young men. At their very wedding, his lover was beaten to death on the tourney field by a knight named Criston Cole, once Rhaenyra's own sworn shield, who from that day became her bitterest enemy. In the years that followed, Rhaenyra bore 3 sons, Jacaerys, Lucerys, Joffrey, and there was a problem with them. Laenor Velaryon was silver of hair, as all his blood are. His sons were brown. Brown hair, brown eyes, snub-nosed and broad, the common, unmistakable look of House Strong. And the strongest man at court, sworn to protect the princess and openly devoted to her, was Sir Harwin Strong, called Breakbones, the mightiest man in the 7 kingdoms. The whole court did the sum. No one dared say it aloud, because to call those boys Strongs was to call them bastards, and to call the king's heirs bastards was treason that could cost a man his tongue. To this day, no one can say for certain who fathered Rhaenyra's sons. That uncertainty is not a flaw in the history. It is the gunpowder. Then, in 120, death came in a cluster. Rhaenyra Velaryon, Daemon's beloved second wife, rider of mighty Vhagar, died of a hard birth, leaving the greatest dragon alive without a master. Rhaenor was knifed to death at a fair, and at Harrenhal, Sir Harwin Strong and his lord father burned alive in a fire no one could explain. Accident or arson, or the work of a club-footed brother with ambitions of his own. The chronicles, again, fall silent. When the smoke cleared, the two widowed lovers were free at last. Daemon wed Rhaenyra, and she gave him 2 sons, silver-haired and violet-eyed beyond any doubt. But the stain on her first 3 never washed clean. Which brings us back to Driftmark and the boy in the dark. They had gathered to mourn Rhaenyra, and there, masterless in the night, lay Vhagar, the last dragon of the conquest, the largest living thing in the world. Young Aemond, 10 years old, dragonless and mocked for it, crept down before dawn and climbed her. And Vhagar took him. The angriest small boy in the realm now rode the deadliest weapon in it. They caught him, and they mocked him, and it came to blows. Rhaenyra's twin daughters, who had thought the dragon theirs by right, and Rhaenyra's sons. Aemond, beaten and bleeding, spat the forbidden word in their faces, Strongs. He named the treason to their faces. And young Lucerys drew his knife and slashed open Aemond's right eye. He would be Aemond One Eye ever after. In time, he would wear a sapphire where the eye had been. They were dragged before the king, and here is the scene that holds the whole war inside it. Queen Alicent demanded justice, an eye for an eye, that Lucerys be blinded in turn. By the fool's telling, she begged to do it with her own hand. King Viserys would not. He would not maim his own grandson. He commanded the matter forgotten, and forbade the word strong on pain of a man's tongue. And so, no one was punished, and no one was satisfied. The wound stayed open and festered, and they say the half-blind boy felt no regret at all. I lost an eye, he said, and gained a dragon. A fair exchange. Remember the boy and the monster. Because that grudge, one child's eye, one child's knife, will help set the whole world alight. The years wore on, and the bastardy whisper would not die. When old Corlys the sea snake fell gravely ill, his own brother Vaemond Velaryon stood up in open court and said the thing the realm had only ever whispered. Rhaenyra's sons are no Velaryons, they are bastards. Daemon's answer needed no words. He took Vaemon's head from his shoulders and fed the body to Rhaenyra's yellow dragon, Syrax. And when Vaemond's kin kept repeating the rumor, King Viserys had their tongues torn out by the root. The realm watched and understood. The blacks would kill to protect the legitimacy of those 3 brown-haired boys, which meant, if the Greens ever won, they would have to kill to disprove it. There was no peaceful answer left. There was only which side struck first. In the year 129, the gentle king finally died. He died in his sleep, a ruin of the man he had been. And as far as he knew, he died with the realm bound by sacred oath to his daughter Rhaenyra, who waited on Dragonstone, great with child. To the very end, his will had never changed. Rhaenyra was his heir. But what were his last words? Here the witnesses split, and we will never close the gap. The pious Septon swears the dying king spoke alone with Queen Alicent in his final hours, and that she chose to hear in those murmured words a blessing she had longed for, that he meant their son Aegon to be king. The court fool says there were no such words at all, that the king was long past speech, and the Greens simply invented a deathbed blessing to cloak what they had already decided to do. Did Viserys betray his own lifelong will in his final breath? Or were his last words stolen from a dying mouth and twisted into a crown? No one living can tell you. That is the fog the whole war was fought inside. And the Greens did not wait for it to clear. They moved. Queen Alicent and her father, the Hand Otto Hightower, hid the king's death from the realm. And in those stolen days, they gathered a council to steal a throne. Otto Hightower, the Cold Architect, Sir Criston Cole, the turncloak of the King's Guard, soon to be called the Kingmaker, Larys Strong the Clubfoot, Master of Whispers, and one old man who said no. Lord Lyman Beesbury, near 80 years old, alone spoke up for Rhaenyra's right, and the oaths they had all sworn. He did not live out the council. How he died, the sources cannot agree. A chill in the black cells, or his throat opened by Criston Cole, or thrown from a window onto iron spikes. We know only this. The first life of the Dance of the Dragons was spent in a council chamber before a single dragon took wing. An old man killed for keeping his word. There was a quarrel even among the conspirators. Otto wanted Rhaenyra and her sons dead. Every rival put to the sword before the war could begin. But the queen would not have it. Alicent argued to crown Aegon and offer terms, even as her own conscience told her the truth, that the moment her son did not take the throne, Rhaenyra would have no choice but to kill him to be safe. One of these children had to die for the other to live. So Aegon must be king. There was only one trouble. Aegon did not want the crown. The king-to-be was off in the city, drinking, wenching, watching men die in the fighting pits of Flea Bottom. And they had to hunt him through the gutters of his own capital and talk him onto a throne. But found he was. And the Greens had their reluctant king. And on Rhaenys' hill, the queen who never was, the living proof of the precedent against Rhaenyra, slipped her guard, climbed her red dragon melees, and flew hard for Dragonstone, to carry a warning to the woman the realm had sworn to obey. They crowned Aegon in the dragon pit, a spectacle staged before the small folk so it would look like law, crowned by Criston Cole with the iron and ruby crown of the conqueror himself, proclaimed Aegon the second of his name, his sister Helaena crowned beside him as his queen. And after, Golden Sunfire carried the new king 3 times around the city. How the crowd received him, the chronicles cannot agree. And so, fittingly, neither will we. 100,000 roaring throats, says the official telling. Half-empty benches and thin, bought applause, says the fool. And a later Meister, perhaps truest of all, a crowd confused and mostly silent, and somewhere in the press, a few brave voices crying, "Long live our queen," for the absent Rhaenyra. They were dragged away for it, the first to be punished in a war not yet declared. Across the bay, on Dragonstone, the warning landed like a blow. When Rhaenyra heard that her father was dead, her throne stolen, her birthright given to her half-brother, the shock and grief threw her into a hard and early labor. The child, a daughter she named Visenya, was born dead. Father, throne, and child, lost in a single night. But Rhaenyra was the dragon's daughter, and she did not break. The next day, before 300 witnesses, Daemon set a crown upon her head and named her Queen of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, the rightful heir, oaths and all. And so it was done. 2 monarchs, 2 courts, 2 crowns, 1 iron throne, Aegon in King's Landing, with the throne and the greater dragons. Rhaenyra on Dragonstone, with the sworn oaths, the young dragons, and the greatest fleet in the world. Corlys, the sea snake, closing his ships across the throat of the realm. And that was the horror of it. Everyone could cite the law. The Council of 101 had made Viserys king by denying a woman the throne, and Viserys had willed that throne to a woman. Both sides held a precedent. Both sides held an oath. There was no answer that did not end in fire. So we leave them here, on the knife's edge. 2 crowns set in a single fortnight. A realm holding its breath, waiting to see who would strike first. Not a single blow has yet been struck. Not one drop of blood spilled in open war. But remember the boy at Driftmark, with the sapphire eye and the easy grin, and the largest dragon in the world answering to him now. Remember the knife that took his eye, and the cousin who held it. Some debts in this story are owed in blood, because the next time a dragon takes wing in this tale, it will not be for a coronation. It will be over Storm's End, and one of these children will not come home. I'm Westeros within. If you want to be here when the first fire falls, and to follow this saga to its bitter, brilliant end, subscribe and join me for Episode 2, Blood and the First Fire. The dragons are waking.